I'm Karis Kopp. I am joined by Fraser Chesterman of FuturePrint and Mark Bale of DoD Exact and Mark Greendoors of AgFirst. So, hi guys.
Hi, Karis.
I just wanted to have a bit of a chat about the recent FuturePrint Tech Fest. We usually do a bit of a wrap up of the event, usually a bit closer to the event, but it's been a busy few weeks for everyone, I think, and some people have been enjoying the lovely weather. So we're a few weeks on, but hopefully we can remember a bit about the event and talk a little bit about it. Fraser, maybe if we start with things that were a bit different than the previous FuturePrint events that we've held. And, you know, we did some panel sessions kind of filmed in the studio, which was fantastic. The kind of ethos behind it was taking people through these 5 critical steps for inkjet success. So maybe if you kind of give us an overview on how that went.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously what we were thinking here, when we did the research after the spring events that we ran, the Leaders Summit and the summit that we ran in February, a lot of people were saying we really want to look at technical, be a bit more technical in our tone. And the industrial inkjet market, as we all know and we've talked about before, is there's lots of interesting, exciting technical developments going on. And so we wanted to pick up on this area. And in discussions with the development group, we came up with this idea of creating a theme called the 5 critical steps to industrial inkjet success. And this is in part because, all of us as a development group and through our experience, we'd kind of noticed that on a lot of projects, there were certain things that helped you make a success of this. And obviously, if anyone's starting out on that path technically or a part, within that path, then this might give them a bit of support and a bit of help in terms of working out how to, how to make the project run smoothly. And those 5 steps really just took them through kind of strategy, first principles, problem-solving applications, talked a lot about collaboration, talked about technology selection, integration, which I know the guys will tell us a bit about, and then communicating the economic case for inkjet. So these 5 steps, we focused a little bit on those, and the recordings that we did in the studio, which we'll also talk a little bit about, they kind of highlighted some of those issues and in the main got panels involved. And I know that, obviously Mark Greendoors, his session very much was about working through the steps, and Mark Bale, who's with us today, also very much his panels were picked up on some of these issues. So yeah, that was the idea behind the Tech Fest. Just to give you some numbers, we currently had about 950 people registered for the event. The sessions each session tended to get about sort of 200 or so people registering to come to this session. The videos are still available, as you know. They're all of really good quality. Mixture of, recordings that we did in the studio, one-to-one interviews like the one I did with Mark Greendoors, recordings that Mark Bale did where he was actually in his workshop, which was great. So, really good mix of content. And again, very, very popular with people and people liked what they saw. So hopefully gave something back to the industry in terms of value.
Fantastic. And those numbers were great as well. Just thinking about the fact that we didn't have so much of a captive audience as we have done at previous events with lockdowns. Things were opening up. People are maybe a little bit, not as ready to spend a couple of days on watching Zoom calls and being part of virtual events in that way. Do you think it's fair to say?
Yeah, I think we're learning as we go, really. There's a lot of content out there online. I think the guys would agree with this. Mixing in some studio content seemed to work well. That also was great because we actually had an opportunity to bring people together. We had 30 or so major manufacturers together in a studio, and conversations between them was fantastic. So I think going forward, and we'll talk about this in a moment, is we'll introduce more of a live content element to our FuturePrint events. But anyway, let's perhaps we should ask the guys what they were thinking.
Yeah, I think if we just kind of jump on from that first for you, Mark Bale, who joined us in the studio to record those panels and be part of the event, and you actually moderated the panel on technology selection and integration. How was that? How was being out and kind of that was the first element of the event that had been in person? What was the experience like, and what was the maybe the feedback you got from that as well?
Just to echo what Fraser said, I think it was great to be able to get together. Of course, we had the luxury that we were in the UK, so some of the partners couldn't partake in that. But we very much had that in mind when we were talking and tried to be as inclusive as possible, even though we were representing, the subjects we were talking about. Good to get together, and I think, like Fraser said, it will be an important element to maintain in future events, because it does mix up when you're going through the event, especially when you devote time to it and you're going through talk to talk. Then to have some more variation is good for keeping attention. And I thought the panels themselves were excellent. In fact, they stitched together, and there were some really good theme reinforcements, and especially, Mark probably comment on this, the important role that ink has in industrial processes, and that you have to consider, the holistic view of that ink performance with all the other equipment suppliers from the outset of a project.
Yeah, absolutely, and to you, Mark Graindors, I have to specify. I just a great point, certainly in the panel that I hosted, the importance of considering ink early in the process when many don't. It's not just about the print head, and I know that was something in your session that was that was the idea behind your session, that ink perspective. Is that something that you kind of saw in the panels that echoed your thinking and what your session was about as well?
Yeah, you're completely right. It was something coming back in many sessions was a few things. Not only ink, think about it early in the process, which was covered many times in a correct way as part of a solution. So generally speaking, I learned a lot about the solution approach. Also, Mark's approach is showing that inkjet can work when you look to the solution approach. And when you look to what you want to print. That's the second thing I learned. You have to adapt your thinking to what is your goal. Do I print from a high throwing distance, or do I print at maximum speed at 1 millimeter? All those aspects have an ink aspect, of course, but also very sure a jetting aspect. So that's what I think very well proven during the 2 days. As well, of course, the next big theme was collaboration. You cannot do anything on your own. You have to work together in a partnership way, and then you can reach a lot of results. I think that's... sorry, my dog is awake. I think that is the key takeaways for me from the event.
Yeah, absolutely. Collaboration was, really weaved throughout the whole schedule. Really, I think it was a major theme. Lots of sessions on the idea of that, and I think that's perfect for FuturePrint and the community. All the partners, so many of them work together, so many of them collaborate together. Mark Graindors, just thinking about, I don't know how many of the rest of the sessions you had time to enjoy, but were there any kind of other particular highlights from the program that stood out to you or that were of particular interest?
Yeah, I think I saw 80% of the sessions. It's always pleasant to see the different aspects. You had talks about media development, about the substrate, making them more easy, more defined for food packaging. It's one that I remember. there are some that were quite showing good videos, progress of new systems, so that you have insight in what is being developed. That I learned. And as Fraser and Mark said, the panels were, I think, a little more oriented at a real message from different perspectives. And you see Mark Bale doing the moderation of that session, where you bring together, Mark, the aspects in a multidisciplinary way. I think that is very helpful for the industry, so that everybody can select better their partners and think, what are we looking for and who do we need to make it work?
Yes, I think it reflected very well on the expertise of the people participating, that the session gelled really well between the experiences and shared experiences in many ways. And I think that's certainly what's good about the FuturePrint events, is it really highlights how we know each other, can work together, and we can help provide solutions, collaborating in partnership. And okay, there are some competitors, but even then, we recognize the importance of there being choice in the market in order to give people confidence that they can find the right solution. And there are some one-stop shops, but actually a lot of the technology developments we see, particularly in industrial printing, have been produced by those collaborations. And to cement that with the conversation with actual examples and the benefit of that experience, I think was exceptional. And I was very glad to get good feedback on the session I hosted, but I very much put the success of that at the experience of the people who I was trying to get information out of. And in fact, it wasn't very hard. So people are very willing to talk about their experiences for benefit of potential new customers.
Yeah, you're too modest, Mark. Too modest.
I was just about to say, it was a great session. It was a really great session. And it just reflected, as you said, both of you have said, the fact that with industrial inkjet projects, that we're often talking about customization of a solution, and that what you get from working with perhaps 4 partners or 3 partners is the best of the best, don't you? You get the kind of best in show from the ink side, working with a really good quality machine maker that using the best, that gives you the broadest knowledge of all the little parts that go together in the jigsaw to create that final product that is often a bespoke product, isn't it? It's not always an off-the-shelf machine. And as both of you have said, how many times do we come to that, thinking, developing the ink, developing the machine, and then thinking about the ink. It's that kind of working together, collaboration that's so important. A couple of the sessions I did, exactly that. We had Seiko, Sigve, and Integration Technology working together. That was an interesting one. There was another one that I thought was particularly. We don't often hear about digital print on glass. We had a great case study from Marabou and Koenig & Bauer. So you've got machinery and inks. It was just great to have these different people talking about their partnership together to really help customers, prospective customers, to work through this.
Yeah, definitely. And that Marabou one, really interesting. I think it's great to have these major themes, but it's also great to see these things in action. Really interesting collaboration there. Fraser, just not kind of while we're picking out people, just any others that kind of stood out to you? I think there was certainly, Durst with the Smart Factory.
Yep, that was interesting, because that is a subject that it seems to be cropping up quite a lot, is this sort of businesses that have got lots of pieces of different bits of technology, that ability to try and weave it all together. And Durst talking a lot about that and the importance of software and the management and the integration of complete solutions, because a lot of people have bought different pieces of technology and they're kind of trying to integrate it all together. We've heard this subject mentioned before. I think it's increasingly going to be relevant going forward as people try and work out how to make things work more efficiently. That sort of efficiency issue is true. Mark Graindor's mentioned, I think he was talking about the Bob's session, Mark, where Nick from Bob's, who is a sustainability specialist, was talking a lot about materials for packaging. And this is obviously very important going forward in terms of barrier and what inks are used, what application you use, what surface you're printing on, because obviously packaging is going to be, that's one of the big markets that's growing, and inkjet for packaging is very, very relevant. So yeah, there's some interesting things that also point forward to prospective kind of trends in the market, I think. I don't know whether Mark and Mark agree. Mark, either of you?
Yeah, I think trends indeed, and packaging is definitely a hotspot that by COVID is encouraged to go digital, but it's not only this industry. In our daily life, we see kind of every type of application coming on the table. That really shows that people believe that industrial inkjet works. And decoration, where I'm very active, there's a huge hype about printing digital designs, and it's not only customization, it's taking part of the production printing to digital. And I think that's what we need as an industry. Look to the label industry, which is maybe the first one that on a big scale became inkjet. I first even a toner, but now a lot inkjet. It took many years to grow, but now it's you cannot think that it's not be present anymore. And I believe that will happen in decoration printing and in other industries also. But packaging, definitely, there is a good example where there is a big benefit of digital print.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one of the talks I liked, it was very succinct, came from Steve Wilson at Inca, where the modesty of which he presented two amazing technological feats of printing was quite striking. And I feel really bad because I spend like an hour talking about a print head and he spends like 7 minutes talking about two amazing printers. But I think it's seeing that the technology can deliver that functionality, whether it's 300 meters a minute or whether it's, the challenge of getting sheet-fed printing to work, or a combination, and as Mark says, in decorative printing, there are so many different types of flooring, for example, are now printed digitally. And it's great to see that in the marketplace. And when I talk to people about what I do for a living now, it isn't just like, even it's a bit more about, oh, well, I've got a digitally printed tile in my bathroom and stuff like that, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just on your session, Mark, actually, you said talking about the print head there, it was a practical, demonstration, wasn't it? Which isn't always what we get during the events. And I think that's something that I really enjoyed and would hope maybe we'll see more of going forward. Actually, people, you're in the lab and you're showing us practically like a trade show. If we were able to travel so much, did you get some kind of feedback to that for actually being kind of carrying out a practical demonstration?
Yeah, so the feedback generally, like before, was overwhelmingly positive where I received it. And, to credit where it's due, I was inspired originally by the great presentation done last year by Lander, where they did the demonstration of the transfer print. And I just thought, to actually demonstrate something would be good. And it became a bit of a theme for 2020. And although it takes time, it's nice to have available because then I can use that going forward promotionally as well.
Yeah.
So it's worth somewhat 2 weeks actually it took to organize, implement and edit that video. So yeah, it's great fun to do. That's the most important thing. And I enjoy working in my lab. That's why I have one. I enjoy helping people. And so being able to combine that and do a video that means working in my lab and hopefully helping people by giving some information is a good outcome.
And all those videos are available again if anyone wants to watch them again or wants to pass them on to someone. We do encourage replays and get people to use them. They're available for people to use really, and they're great content.
Yeah, absolutely. techfest.futureprint.tech/replays, and all the replays from the TechFest. are there. Fraser, I wonder if we talk a little bit about maybe what's next. I mean, we've been running these FuturePrint events since the very beginning of the pandemic, which seems was a very long time ago now. And we've tried lots of different things, and lots of it has been really fantastic and just built around the community and getting the content out there. And obviously it's evolving. Like this time we actually had the opportunity to film those in studio panels, which was fantastic. But kind of looking to the future is still quite uncertain, unfortunately. But what's maybe next for the FuturePrint events?
Yeah, I mean, we would like to run something live in the autumn period, so October, November period. We are currently looking at that. What we found, Mark Bale mentioned it, it was just so good to get people together in the recording studio. And we would like to do something that we've done in the past. We used to run an event when we were working with Imprint called Leaders in Technology in Cambridge. That was always a really popular event. Used to get about 100 or so delegates to attend, and then we used to have dinner in the evening, and it's just a great way of getting people together, some really good content. And I think we're going to perhaps look at something similar to that. And the plan is to record it all, and so that basically we can, anyone who can't make it, the content will be available. And I guess in terms of subject matter, as both Marks have mentioned, or Mark Graindor certainly mentioned, is the packaging segment is very interesting for Inkjet, and we think that we'll probably focus a little bit around that subject. Gives us also a scope to bring in some speakers who perhaps can give us an outlook on retail trends and some of the kind of direction that we'll end up going. So yeah, we've got some thoughts and some plans, and both Marks are very much involved in the sort of development of these plans, and we'll, be pleased to have them with us in the autumn. So yeah, thanks, Karis.
Fantastic. And just on that, the good thing about, when we, the first FuturePrint virtual summit, the good thing about all being at home and it being virtual was that, we had partners and speakers from all over the world, and they just, they record their Zoom and we play it. Obviously with the in-studio panels, it was kind of a UK focus because obviously people had to travel to the UK event. Is there a concern now that if we're doing more live things, it's kind of going to be more of a UK focus and we'll lose that worldwide scope?
No, I think, we're hoping, aren't we, fingers crossed, or whatever we do. We hope that by the autumn we'll be able to travel and that this would be more of an international audience. So in that respect, yeah, of course, we want to try and get people together. So we're hoping, all of us are hoping that we're fully injected, fully vaccinated, fully kind of ready and compliant to move around, and that things are good. And because that would be lovely to get people together again. I think it's so important, and we all agree. Face-to-face makes things so much more effective. Just to add one other thing on that, one of the things that we did in the springtime was the Leaders Summit, where we had all the leaders from the CEOs. That was just so popular. Mark Graindor's arranged for the CEO of AGFA to be involved in that. That was so good to having CEOs from Bob's, from AGFA, from senior management from HP, from EFI. It was just so good to have that. Sorry, we would do that again. That was just such a great thing to do, and we hope to do that live if we can try and get a few people together. That probably would be beginning of the new year if things come to fruition on that side.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a fantastic event. I'd love to see some of those people or see those leaders kind of speaking in person.
Yeah. A bit like TED.com kind of approach. I think that's one of the things we think is probably useful for people, that we have some live content. Delegates are able to join us, but also the content is boomed out kind of to a wider audience. Bear in mind, the US is probably the second or third largest market for this subject. So it's very, very relevant, and we love to have the Americans, get involved in this. We've got some great supporters from the US. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I think we will wrap this up in just a moment, but I wonder if the Marks would maybe offer some insight into what you might like to see from future events, anything that you've seen at these last events that you might want to see more of, or anything that would be of particular interest. Mark Graindoors, if we start with you.
Yeah, first of all, the packaging is of course very interesting, because it's not an easy chain of companies. If you have the consumer from the first producer of let's say a substrate, and everything in between is a long chain with a lot of value added by every chain. So you have to look carefully with inkjet where is the value for everybody in the chain. And we've seen that in label. The converters were very reluctant to change to inkjet at first. You have to convince them. And now we are working in other chains like corrugated packaging. So very interesting. There's a big hype to do digital printing for corrugated. Will it fit? Will it work? What is the best fit? Pre-print, post-print? You have all the options. What is the best technology? What is the best result? All the advantages of digital, where do you have the most? So that's quite an interesting field. So packaging, you have to look to it through many aspects, and that's of course very technical, but also strategic. So I think there is a good team for a next event. But I think the TechFest brought something that I think we needed, and was the right moment to be more technical, to show people that how inkjet can work, elements that you have to think about, and to early in the decision. Okay, you have a project to inkjet, how are you going to do it? Who are you going to collaborate with, what technology? So I would really love to see that FuturePrint continues a kind of a yearly TechFest, hopefully live, we'll see.
Yeah, that would be fantastic, and definitely a packaging focus. I think FuturePrint audience would definitely get something out of that. So looking forward to what happens there. What about you, Mark Bale? Just looking forward and what you might like to see.
Well, I worked on packaging for many years as part of one of the leading suppliers into that industry, and I completely agree with what Mark said. I think one thing that strikes me is we had a little bit of discussion of over the last year is 3D print. I think there's not much overlap between what we consider 2D, even print to shape, and actual true making a product out of an inkjettable material, which is what a part of 3D print is. And I look around, and I've been lucky enough to be involved in some binder jet applications and stuff like that. And I just think there's a world out there that isn't that networked into the inkjet world. And since there's been quite a lot of inkjet focus in FuturePrint, there's potential there to sort of form some links. So that would be maybe what I'll try and get my next demonstration to think about.
Yeah,
might need a bit of an upgrade in my lab to do it, but I think it's an area that's growing incredibly, and a market success is always kind of judged by mergers and acquisitions. And in additive manufacturing, if you look generally at the terminology, then there's a huge amount of that going on. And I think inkjet has a very much enlarging role to play in additive. And of course, inkjet by its very nature, in all the applications I've worked on, is an additive manufacturing method. And I just think, to draw more parallels on that would be great, and to see a bit more content related to it, because we know people like Xar 3D are doing it, for example, would be good.
That'd be really interesting.
Would, yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much, everybody. It was fantastic to have a TechFest wrap up. I'm glad we all remembered the event, and really looking forward to whatever's next. And everybody, as we said, techfest.futureprint.tech/replays. You can catch up on absolutely everything. If you go to futureprint.tech, you can find your way to all the replays from other events as well, the Leader Summit, the virtual summits, the virtual conference. Please do if you're looking for some fantastic content. We've got that whole bank of content there. Mark Bale, Theo the Exact, Mark Greendoors from AgFur, and Fraser and me from FuturePrint. Thank you all so much for being here and having this chat with us.
Thanks, Karen.
Good to catch up.
Thank you.